I'm TJ Sinclair, aka TJ the Destroyer. I'm the vocalist for Xenobiotic.
I'm Nish from Xenobiotic. I play guitar and I sort of started the band.
I'm Cam Moore. I've been playing guitar for Xenobiotic since 2016. A lot of these guys I've known since I was about 16 years old, so that's gone on about 15 years.
I'm David. I play a 6-string big guitar with my fingers, bass guitar. I do the widdly shit.
I'm Mikey, drummer from Xenobiotic, and I'm a pretty slender motherfucker. That's pretty much it, yeah.
We solidified our lineup in 2011, and that's kind of when we started playing shows. And yeah, you know, we just kept pushing through the whole band thing. We've had a lot of lineup changes across time, and that's affected how our sound has evolved and how we express ourselves. We started as like just a run-of-the-mill local band, and as we did more of it, we just decided at one point that, yeah, let's see how far we can take this. We finished the first album and we were just kind of like, we could probably actually tour this around, around the world. That'd be awesome. And yeah, we just kept doing that.
Fucking grueling. It was just 10 months of solidly sitting in my fucking studio just writing lyrics and rewriting lyrics and finally having songs done and then fucking rewriting the songs because I wasn't happy with them. So it was absolutely fucking grueling.
It was an interesting one. It's not the typical sort of like get in the jam room and just write songs as a band. It was very heavily focused around Nish himself, came up with a lot of the concepts and ideas. Basically he'd come up with an idea and he'd upload a demo. We'd all check it out, give our sort of thoughts, make any changes, and then once it was all sort of more concrete in a set song, then I'd start writing my drums. Nish would send me like the song with a click track over it, and I'd just sit at home for fucking hours on end and just write my parts until I was happy with it.
It was much different to Prometheus, which was solely written by one band member, so it was much more collaborative process for this album. So that was a bit of a learning process for us, just trying to work out how much of our own flavours we wanted to insert into each song.
The writing process was really hectic. So for the first album, we thought about it holistically. Like we actually tried to create a record from start to finish that was one singular statement. We didn't do that this time around. We decided to just sort of let the music take shape and form as we wrote it. And the result was we ended up going to some really dark places. The emotions that we touch on in this record are really dark. They come from really personal places, and with the interplay with the concept and the parts of our life that we've sort of injected into the story that we've written. Yeah, it was really tough being that vulnerable.
The concept, I think, behind Mordrake varies for everyone in the band. Obviously, TJ wrote the story, sort of how he wanted to portray it, but I think from what we've created and what it is now and the sort of visual representation that we have as well as the music itself, it's a really solid metaphor for mental health, someone being mentally unstable and just really battling their inner demons and I guess life's demons as well. Yeah, it's a bit of a hectic journey.
Well, the original concept was based on an ordeal that TJ went through a few years ago. Some of it I witnessed firsthand. It was not a good time for him. When you really simplify it down, it can be related to by anybody who sort of knows that feeling of just losing control of your brain, your life, everything that's around you.
It's about a man who has lost his wife and is experiencing sort of the surrealism that might surround, the death of a loved one, and a lot of hallucinations, a lot of trauma, pent-up anger maybe, and then eventually coming to the realization that she's gone, she's not coming back, and he's going to have to pick up the pieces.
The concept behind Mordrake is essentially, as I understand it, it's someone who struggles with mental illness. We used Edward Mordrake, the figure from the urban legend, the UK urban legend, as a representation of this person who has schizophrenia or something like that, where they got hallucinations and a second personality type thing in the back of their heads. That's kind of what's represented with Mordrake. The concept kind of takes us through the journey of this person from when he wakes up at his lowest point, his absolute lowest point, and he tries to retrace his steps, and he finds so many new things out about himself and about the world around him and about how he thinks these sorts of things. He just goes further and further into this void, this illness, which is that same place where this second character comes from. You know, it's about that sort of interplay between the two of them, you know, light side and, you can call it light and dark sides, you can call it the psyche and the shadow, you know, these things. There are so many different kind of archetypes that apply to this, but it's that sort of internal struggle narrative where someone's constantly at war with themselves, tries to find a resolution, and I mean, he finds something.
The concept of the album is actually a dream that I had a couple of years ago about one of my ex-partners who I was actually having a baby with, and we ended up losing the baby. And she ended up leaving me and all that stuff, and I completely went fucking blown away, elusive. I went mental. And I ended up having a dream that I woke up and she was completely gone. I had no idea where she went at this time. So I went on a search trying to find her and everything. And when I eventually did find her, I actually had developed a split personality that had gone completely insane and killed her and the baby, because I found out that she was cheating on me and the baby was not mine. I woke up and I genuinely was scarred for life from that dream, so I decided to write an actual album about it because I thought it would be a good concept.
For me personally, I hadn't played drums for 5 years prior to joining Xeno in 2018. It was obviously the time constraint that we had to write and record Mordrake, but on top of that I was still sort of getting used to playing my instrument again, and trying to strengthen everything that I previously knew, and obviously incorporate all the new ideas and all that sort of stuff into the new material. So yeah, it was the time constraint was pretty much the hardest part.
Definitely working to a deadline. We've never had to do that before. So after being signed to Unique Leader, we only had a set amount of time in which to write and record the album. So that was pretty stressful having to adjust to that, but I think we got there pretty well in the end.
So the recording itself was obviously, it's very technical music. So what happened inadvertently was that I ended up flaring up an old tendon injury that I'd gotten from playing too much guitar. You know, I had RSI for a little while, and that just kind of happened right at the start of the recording process, because I thought, yeah, you know what, inverted's tough, but it's short. I can just knock that out of the way. So I basically fried my tendons in the first session and had to power through it with that. And as for the writing, just being that vulnerable is really tough, especially when you're releasing it to an essentially unlimited audience. You're not just showing this to your friends, you're not just showing this to your family or people who know you. There are people who don't know you who are going to hear everything you've been through. To actually put that into a semblance of a finished product is like, it's beyond words, and in a way, it was probably the toughest thing I've ever had to do with music. Going to those emotional places and trying to capture those emotions in music and being honest with ourselves and going through all those things again, having to hear the echoes of those memories and those emotions in the music.
Writing the lyrics more than anything, trying to make sure that they represented exactly what I wanted to say. There's a lot of metaphoric lyrics throughout the whole album, so you can interpret it in certain ways, but the main thing I wanted to do was get my story out and have people realize exactly what I was going through. But that was probably the hardest thing, is actually getting exactly what I wanted out of the lyrics, because most of the times I was still not happy with it in the end, but it's still, you know, it is what it is.
My name's Matt. I'm a producer, engineer, audio guy. Kind of wear all the hats as you do with this kind of stuff these days. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Joe. I run my own business, DarKSpiritPhotography, and I have recently directed, filmed and edited 3 music videos for Xenobiotic.
Well, I met them back in like the early 2010s because that first iteration of the band used to play a bunch of shows with my band. Yeah, I started off doing recordings, just doing demos and stuff, and they were awesome. So I kept harassing Nish to let me do some stuff for them, and then eventually got the opportunity to do so, and been working together since. It's been really rad.
I actually first started working with Xenobiotic back in 2011, which is when they very first started as a band, and they had a completely different sound and lineup to what they have today.
Well, that's a tough one. Like, I'd come off like a real patch of like not listening to heaps of super heavy music, which I guess is like kind of cool if you work with it all the time to try and get inspiration from like outside sources and all of that. But like something direct, like I'm a big Fit for an Autopsy fan, like always have been. So that's like always going to find its way in there somehow. But like, yeah, I was listening to like heaps of like post-rock and like ambient stuff as it was going on. I was doing some other records similar to that at the same time, and I think that helped me heaps, like drawing from that sort of thing and like finding ways to get new sounds for the genre.
This is a hard question because I didn't use any specific references or other forms of inspiration. I met with the band, they gave me the outline of the story that they wanted, and together we worked on and developed the ideas which you now see in the form of the 3 videos.
Intense but rewarding. Like it was a lot more organized than the previous time around, which was great. But like the parts that I was involved in the recording of, which was like the vocals and the drums, like I was really lucky to be working with like just awesome musos. Like that's kind of what's always been easy about this band, is like everyone's always been really switched on and like prepared and good with their parts and all that, which makes my job really easy because then I can just focus on getting like the good parts out of the performance as opposed to just trying to get something. So yeah, it was really chill from a recording perspective. And then mixing was like, you know, that this genre is like always a bit of a technical challenge, and like what I've always found that I need to spend the most time on is balancing out that technical side of stuff with the creative side of mixing, which is like what I kind of enjoy most. So yeah, like overall like challenging, but like nothing that was unexpected. Like when the music's really good like this, it never feels like work.
The process itself was fairly straightforward. I met with the drummer Mikey and the manager Fabian over a meal, and they gave me the basic outline. I sort of gave my input, my thoughts on what they had come up with, and together we sort of narrowed down pros and cons, and as a group we decided what to do and how to go about doing it. The process itself, in theory, was meant to be fairly straightforward, but we had a few issues along the way, one of which being the location. It was at least a 2-hour drive from where I currently live, and it was a very far drive from where most of the band are situated as well. We had to go back a couple of times. We were hoping to initially finish all 3 videos in the one weekend, but there was a few problems with logistics, and we had to go back a couple of times to complete the project, but I think it was worth it in the end.
Editing the 6 million kick drums that are on the record. Just because there's a lot of them.
The biggest challenge, well, I've kind of already covered that. The driving, the travelling, having to avoid areas at the location which we now realise were full of asbestos, trying not to get asbestos poisoning. Keeping the spirits high was another challenge. After many hours in the sun, followed by many hours of trying to perform, it's enough of a difficult task for anyone to keep their A game and their attitudes positive. But I think considering the band did really well and were very, very supportive of me in my input, and I could tell that they really trusted me throughout the journey from start to finish.
The 3 ones that influenced me would be like In Flames, as sort of the band that got me into metal. As far as playing goes, Beyond Creation, they're the band that when I saw them play, I'm like, I gotta play like this sort of music, it's crazy tech stuff. And another band, lesser known, but they're really having an influence on me, is the Odious Construct. They're a small band from California. Sick as fuck.
This is an interesting one. So when I was younger, probably the number one band and album that really influenced me when I was younger was the self-titled Slipknot album, and probably Iowa as well, straight after that. That was massive for me when I was growing up. It really cemented my sort of drumming from there. And then the next sort of major thing that really inspired me was Job for a Cowboy, mainly their release Ruination. That release just did things to me as a drummer and a musician, just opened my eyes to a lot of things. And then most recently, Periphery, their album 2, which just blew my mind. The groove on that Matt Halpin brings to each track is just phenomenal, and it's just, yeah, it was infectious to my drumming from there on.
Between the Buried and Me, any album, don't worry, you choose. Let's go Periphery 2, that was a big one for me, and Wretched Beyond the Gate.
Probably the biggest one was Failure Subside by a band called Depart, Tasmanian post-black death metal kind of guys, more towards the post-metal realm than anything, but with that extremity and that sort of, that darkness. Incredible atmosphere. That's basically where a lot of the atmospheric chops on this album came from. Just basically listening to that non-stop for years and having that residue. As well as Fallujah, Dreamless by Fallujah, which was a really big one for me personally as a guitar player. The guitar work is fantastic on that, so are the arrangements. And Epitaph by God is an Astronaut, personally, because I don't think there's any other record that I've listened to that makes such a strong emotional statement with just music. There's no words, but you can feel what they felt. And I think there's a really strong element of tragedy to that record that I think sort of, it didn't exactly, you know, set the backdrop for this one because we deal with a different set of emotions, but incredibly emotional, incredibly visceral music.
Well, Shadow of Intent, Melancholy was definitely a massive influence. Black Dahlia Murder, Nightbringers, and the Anthropocene by Cattle Decapitation. They were probably the three biggest, the three albums I listened to the most while writing the album. Just trying to find some kind of influence so I could actually, because a lot of the time I was really, really stuck. I was blocked with a lot of things because I just wasn't happy with what I was writing.
I'm gonna say it's Shadow of Intent's release Melancholy, just released last year. Super awesome death metal album, like covered all the bases, sounds good, pleasure to listen to right the way through. They're very good at it.
For 2019, I would say Analemma, Secular Eden. More people need to listen to that band, they're amazing. For really recent, Earthrot's new album slaps.
Favourite recent release? It's a tricky one. I don't even know. I don't even know. Circles by Mac Miller. I listen to a lot of different music other than metal, and after he passed away, hearing that really riled me up on emotionally. So really hit home. So it was a good one.
Oh, fuck. Probably Traitors, Repent. That is absolutely one of the most fucking bunterest albums I've ever heard. Like, I cannot stop listening to it. It's so fucking heavy.
That's a tough one. I've been listening to music. Freedom of Fear's most recent release, Nocturnal Gates. Yeah, an incredible sort of tech death, prog death outfit. Very old school, very heaps of death vibes. Incredible vocals, incredible arrangements, incredible solos, incredible riffs. Just all around incredible record, especially if you're into your progressive death metal.
We definitely feel the crunch time and deadlines, and that, you know, sometimes we don't have enough time to do things exactly the way we want it. Sometimes we do have to settle, compromise, improvise, But sometimes, and I think this time it did turn out very well, so it's not such a bad thing. It's good to have a deadline to work to. I'm very much in that sort of mindset. I like deadlines.
It's become a shitload more stressful. Yeah, we've all suddenly realised we could actually go somewhere with, but it's going to take a shit ton of work on our end. So, I mean, we were already working hard on it, but now it's just harder.
It's been cool. It's kind of been much the same, really, but we've had a lot more exposure overseas mainly, which is where we sort of are trying to focus the most on. So it's been cool having that support from them and just having someone really get behind us and get our name out there a little bit more, because that's the hardest thing with a band sort of starting out, is just to get yourself known. So yeah, it's been good.
Oh, we hate each other even more. Yeah, I never thought that we could hate each other more than we do now. But nah. It's definitely a massive step from Prometheus. Like, Prometheus was more of that core element style, I feel, and then we've got this full progressive death metal sound coming out of Mordrake, and Mordrake is just the next level. It's definitely changed us as people. I know that I'm definitely not gonna be the same after writing it. So
We basically raised the bar. So what that meant was, instead of just kind of being in this collective of musicians within Perth, we started treating ourselves like an international band and having to meet the standard of international bands, you know, of like Korod and Fallujah and Psychroptic and all of these great, incredibly influential bands to us that have released albums through Unique Leader. We wanted to be on that same par. We wanted to make a record that actually stood up to that.
I hope it's filled with a lot of drinking and antics like that. No, you know, shows, touring, all that cool shit. And hopefully some travel.
Lots of touring, lots of beers, lots of tiny ass fucking buses in the middle of nowhere. Yeah, just heaps of getting out, seeing the world, playing music to new crowds and new cities and making new friends. More releases to come and just heaps more heavy ass music.
You know, it's hard to say at this point. I mean, commercially it's looking all right. Personally, we'll see.
Equal parts bright and dark, I think. I don't think we're gonna get to a point where we are ever going to stop going to terrible emotional places to make music. I guess the point where we stop would be the point where that takes too great a toll on us and we decide, no, we can't do this anymore. But I think we're just going to keep going as far as we can.
hopefully fucking pleasant. I hope things are going to go well. We've had so much positive like feedback from this album. Like I still can't believe it. Like who knew? It's a good album. Like it's a good. Even when I listen to it and I think that I fucking hate it, I know it's a good album. But listen to it yourself. It's good.